my eighth grade social studies teacher.
Oh, Mr. Humble.
Haas, how come you never say Mr. Humble?
That's not my tagline, dude.
No, it's for all of us. It's for all of us to say together.
Let's try it again. Now, my eighth grade social studies teacher.
Welcome to Haas's Humidor. Oh, shit. My bad.
Taught me things that turns out after.
I'm Ron Burgundy.
Question mark?
Kind of a big deal.
Who put that question mark up there?
So Mr. Humble taught me things. It turns out, guys, after doing my own research, wasn't exactly the whole story. And this week, we will dive into the topic of marriage in the United States. So I broadened this out a little bit from the topic that Mikey suggested to me. If my co-host would like to say anything about this, they can yell out pause, and I will pause. So for thousands of years, most anthropologists believe families consisted of loosely organized groups of as many as 30 people, with several male leaders, multiple women shared by them, and children. As hunter-gatherers settled into agrarian civilizations, society had need for more stable arrangements. The first recorded evidence of a marriage ceremony uniting one man with one woman dates to about 2350 BC in Mesopotamia. Oh, so not Adam and Eve. Anyway, over the next several hundred years, marriage evolved into a widespread institution embraced by the ancient Hebrews, Greeks, and Romans. But back then, marriage had little to do with love or religion. Marriage's primary purpose was to bind women to men, and thus guarantee that a man's children were truly his biological heirs. Through marriage, a woman became a man's property. In a betrothal ceremony of ancient Greece, for example, a father would hand over his daughter with three words. With these words. I pledge my daughter for the purpose of producing legitimate offspring. Among the ancient Hebrews, men were free to take several wives. Oh, again, so much for one man, one woman. They took several wives. The married Greeks and Romans were free to satisfy their sexual urges with concubines, prostitutes, and even teenage male lovers, while their wives were required to stay home and tend the household. In many cultures, a bride price or a dowry was, and in some places still is, customary. A dowry is money or property paid by a groom or his family to the family of the woman he will be married to. Once in a while, it goes the other way, but usually that's the way that it goes.
Pause. I charged Kristen's parents $45,000 each for my hand.
Have they paid?
I charged Sam's parents 7 goats.
Okay. Or sheep.
Yeah, it's 7 sheep, Haas. Get your story straight.
You're muted.
In Judaism, the Bible documents a bride price or dowry in Exodus 22. Mikey will love this.
Oh,
quote,
for fuck's sake.
If a man
about the fucking U.S. government, why the fuck am I going to fucking Sunday school?
If a man entice a virgin that is not betrothed and lie with her, he shall surely pay a dowry for her to be his wife. If the father utterly refuses to give her unto him, he shall pay money according to the dowry of virgins. So basically, if you slept with a woman, you had to pay for her virginity because she was worth less to a prospective husband.
No, when you are word a woman, that's what you're supposed, and you get caught, that's what you're supposed to do. Anyway.
So, and that is Hebrew law, really not biblical thing. But so while this was set up to keep divorced women stable after divorce, so as not to become a burden to the community, if wives failed to produce offspring, however, their husbands could give them back and were often refunded in part and could marry someone else. As the Roman Catholic Church became a powerful institution in Europe, the blessings of a priest became a necessary step for a marriage to be legal. By the 8th century, marriage was widely accepted by the Catholic Church as a sacrament or a ceremony to bestow God's grace. At the Council of Trent in 1563, the sacramental nature of marriage was written into canon law, and to this day, the custom of dowry does remain. as it is generally customary, to give a woman a thing of value when you marry them, a ring. Most Americans regard marriage as a couple's commitment to their personal love for one another rather than an economic or social union. It should be noted that marriage is not mentioned in the Constitution at all. Marriage laws, and this is where we get into the fun part, have changed considerably in the United States over time, including the removal of bans on interracial marriage and on same-sex marriages. When the country was founded, marriage between whites and non-whites was in many states forbidden. In 1948, California became the first state high court to declare a ban on interracial marriage unconstitutional. In 1960, interracial marriage was forbidden by law in 31 U.S. states. In 1967, the U.S. Supreme Court, in the case Loving versus Virginia, unanimously rendered interracial marriage laws as unenforceable, which was still the case at the time of that ruling in 16 states. Anti-miscegnation laws had been in place since colonial days in America. In 1865, the black codes across the southern states made interracial marriage illegal. During Reconstruction, this is very interesting, the new Republican legislatures in 6 states repealed those racist laws. But by 1894, when the Democratic Party in the South returned to power, guess what happened? They put the restrictions back in place. A major concern of theirs, this being the Southern Democrats, was how to draw the line between a black and a white society, in which white men had many children with enslaved black women.
Thomas Jefferson.
On the one hand, a person's reputation as a black or white was usually what mattered in practice. On the other hand, most laws used a, quote, one drop of blood rule, which meant that one black ancestor made a person black in the view of the law. Interestingly, though, in many states, interracial marital sex, this is fucking astounding. In many states, interracial marital sex was deemed a felony. So marriage sex between a white man and a black woman, or white woman, black man, was a felony if married. But extramarital sex, if interracial, in other words, adultery or rape, was only a misdemeanor.
You know why that is, right?
Yeah, tell us.
Because I'm just gonna put it out there. A lot of white dudes want to see their wife get by a black guy.
The cuckening?
Yeah, there's a lot of cuckening going on out there.
The great cuckening.
Where Caucasian men, they have a fetish of seeing their wife with a black guy.
That didn't cross my mind, but what did cross my mind was the fact that, look, if you're going to rape someone, they don't want to throw you in jail. They don't want to throw you in jail for the rape.
Right. Especially if you're a white guy raping a black woman.
Right. So they just made it a misdemeanor to rape a black woman.
Pay that fine, get up out of there.
So they pay that fine and get up out of there, right?
Message.
Oh, you're giving a message to me. All right, should I read this message? Let's see.
No, don't read it out loud. Just intake that.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to say it.
I don't want to keep saying that.
Giving me more editing to do. All right. But thank you, though. So Mildred Loving was of Cherokee and African-American descent. Richard Loving was a white man. A white man from Iowa and a black man from Nigeria had Barack Obama. No, remember that little mishap? So Mildred Loving was Cherokee and African-American. Richard Loving was white. Their families both lived in Caroline County, Virginia, which adhered to these strict Jim Crow segregation laws. But that particular town, Central Point, had been a pretty visible mixed-race community since the 19th century. The couple met in high school, and they fell in love. Mildred became pregnant.
She said she didn't like him at first. She thought it was arrogant, and then she realized he was an all right guy. Can I do a little backstory? Because there was just a documentary on this. You guys should check it out.
You can do whatever you want.
The Loving, what was it? The Loving decision or the Loving something? I forget.
Loving versus Virginia.
No, that's the court case. The show, the docu thing.
Oh.
It's called just the loving.
The Loving something.
Yeah.
You'll find it. Just look at it'll probably be on the first splash page or wherever you go. But like their relationship was kind of just like normal dudes, but the husband, he got along with everybody. He was in the cars and shit like that, so he used to go down there and just kick it. He'd kick it with the white dudes, the black dudes, the native peoples. Like he was just cool, and everybody liked him, and he liked everybody. Or he just stayed out of everybody's way. Just a quiet, reserved, cool dude. Go ahead with your board, Phil.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you for the context there. So Mildred became pregnant, and in June of 1958, which is why we're doing this dig now, because this is the anniversary of this, the couple traveled from Washington, D.C. to marry. So June is the anniversary, is their wedding anniversary, thereby evading Virginia's Racial Integrity Act of 1924, which made marriage between whites and non-whites a crime. A few weeks after they returned to Central Point, this is nuts, local police raided their home in the early morning hours, hoping to find them having sex, given that interracial sex was then also illegal in Virginia. So they would have got 2 crimes.
From what I understand, they went there at like 4 o'clock in the morning. That is not when married couples are having sex.
Not when you're married.
It's 30 seconds after them kids hit them damn sheets and that door closes for the last time.
Yeah, but you know, they
4 o'clock in the morning.
They use that stereotype though. They figure them black women, they're just ready to do it all the time.
Stop.
You know,
See?
so
why you got to say it? Don't say it.
Hey, that's what they were thinking. So,
we got work to do, man. You know, you get that done.
Got to get my rest.
I'm trying to tell you, I got clients in the morning.
Gotta sleep sometimes.
Let's get your hands off me, woman.
About 3:30 now, you know.
So
what time did the show wrap up?
When officers found the Lovings sleeping, they were disappointed. Mildred pointed out that the marriage certificate that was on which was on their bedroom wall, and they were told that marriage certificate was not valid in Virginia. The Lovings were charged with miscegnation, a felony, punishable by a prison sentence of between 1 and 5 years.
They call it miscegenation.
I'm not sure. It's miscegenation.
Miscegenation.
Yeah, and apparently it's a bit of a pejorative these days. So, but
white supremacists like to talk that shit.
But they both pled guilty to this is what they pled guilty to: cohabitating as man and wife against the peace and dignity of the Commonwealth. End quote.
Yeah,
to
lovingly be a couple in the house is a besmirching of the integrity of marriage. But if you married to someone of the same race and they beating your ass, that's all right.
Bro, they lived in rural fucking Virginia. Their next neighbor was like 2 miles away. What the fuck are y'all talking about? You couldn't even see. It was a little dirt road. You couldn't tell. You couldn't see
the smell of that interracial loving wafted through the air and
mixed babies
out
running
my
around.
nose. I could smell the cinnamon and lard.
Well, and the comment from the chat, just about the R word, they said that would still be a felony though. Yes, but they're not ever going to get convicted of it.
No.
Right. So like they're never going to convict in that day and time. They would never have convicted a white man of raping a black woman unless it was like done in broad daylight and 1,000 people saw it. It wasn't going to happen.
Hey, because of dress code.
You know, so, but in case the victim of the R word got pregnant and there was some way to tie that baby to Herman would only have a misdemeanor because they weren't married. Right. So it's a dumb law, but whoever said laws had to make sense. They just were there. So the Lovings were sentenced to a year in prison, but the sentence was suspended on the condition that they leave Virginia and not return for 25 years. So they moved.
Damn.
So they moved to D.C. Not comics, the city. In 1963, frustrated by the inability to visit their family, Mildred Loving wrote to Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, who referred her to the ACLU. The ACLU filed a motion in Virginia's circuit court that requested the court to vacate the criminal judgments and set aside the Loving sentences. They waited about a year for a response.
Yep.
So the ACLU then, because of the wait, sued in U.S. District Court. And when that happened, magically, the county court jumped into action. Leon M. Bazile, the Honorable, issued a ruling on the pending motion to vacate. Bazile denied the motion with the words as follows. Almighty God created the races white, black, yellow, Malay, and red, and he placed them on separate continents. And but for the interference with his arrangement, there would be no cause for such marriages.
Wow.
The fact that he, God, separated the races shows that he did not intend for the races to mix. Eesh. Okay.
So get back on your fucking boat and give the land back to the Native Americans then.
Get your ass back to Ireland, Italy,
Right.
England, wherever the fuck you came from.
No,
take your ass back over there then.
No, notice he didn't say who did the interference. In 1966, Justice Harry Carrico, later Chief Justice, wrote an opinion for the court upholding the constitutionality of this. So Carrico ruled that the criminalization of the Lovings marriage was valid because both the white and the non-white spouse were punished equally. So because they served the same sentence, it was valid. The Lovings and ACLU appealed to the Supreme Court, and thus Loving versus Virginia, a unanimous case, became a landmark civil or a unanimous decision, became a landmark civil rights decision, which ruled that laws banning interracial marriage did indeed violate the equal protection and due process clauses of the 14th Amendment. Here's some interesting trivia.
What else did you get out of that? Because there was another section to that ruling.
That is the ruling that I, except for the part that I read earlier, which noted that it was basically turned over because it was unenforceable.
And also because it violated the husband's Fourth Amendment rights to privacy.
Ah, okay.
Because that's what I got out of that documentary was, it wasn't that, blacks and whites are equal in the society and it should be wrong to dictate who can marry who. Like that's crazy. No, it was that this man has a right to privacy to marry a nigger if he wants to.
Yeah, because if the husband had been black and the wife was white,
this man had a right to his privacy to have his wife on his land, not bothering nobody. And they said that they cannot remove that. That would be a violation of his Fourth Amendment to inquire about his spousal relations, to make a law to make a law about who he's with. His wife is none of your concern.
Yeah, go figure.
Even when we win, we lose.
So Loving versus Virginia, again, that's the interesting trivia that I threw in here. From the 60s, the last state to adapt its laws to the Supreme Court decision was Alabama.
Guess what year, Haas?
Guess what year?
2015.
Wrong.
2015.
2000.
I was close.
So like 35 years later?
Of course. But if you look up porn search results, guess where interracial porn is most searched for?
Oh, you know that.
The Deep South.
That
We
you've
love it.
pulled the next section. According to redtube.com. No.
According to Pornhub community tab.
According to research, 1 out of every 7 Pornhub users is looking up interracial little person porn. In 2015,
Wow.
though, the
Make me
reality
think
is in 2015, 17% of all U.S. newlyweds had a spouse of a different race or ethnicity, making that 5 times, making that a 5-fold increase since 1967, when only 3% of newlyweds were intermarried. In addition, polling has shown sharp increases in acceptance of such unions, as the share of adults saying that the growing number of people marrying someone of a different race is good for society rose by 15 points to guess what percentage in 2017?
20.
16.
So again, the number of people, what we're asking here is, what number of people do you think in this poll in 2017, there was a sharp increase of 15 points.
Mm-hmm.
People who believe that marrying someone of a different race is good for society. Again, it went up 15 points, so it's got to be at least 15.
That's
Guess what the percentage was.
17.
We
No,
guessed.
You're both too low, but still only 39%.
Mhm.
Wasn't that far
And they
off?
obviously didn't poll people in Walmarts or Targets or any malls that me and my wife walked through.
Oh my God, man.
Not definitely not in Walmart.
I told a story on my stream earlier today about this old dude coming to check on my wife when I was walking into the car. She went and visited me at the store I was working at. And I'm like walking out to the car and we're chatting and I'm telling her how to get back. He's like, did you get the instructions you needed? Are you all good?
No, man, we about to get in the backseat of this car and make this official.
First of
Now,
all,
get up out of here.
First of all, motherfucker, you about 13 years older than Abraham Lincoln's bones. If you don't get the fuck out of my face, like, why are you talking to us? I don't have to deal with you.
Hey, the best is when you get pulled over by the cops and you got your white girlfriend in the car and they lean in and they ask her, "Are you okay? Is everything all right?
Are you good?"
Nowadays, nowadays she'll just say, "No, there's a tampon shortage. I need a tampon."
I like my favorite experience was, "Are you here of your own free will, ma'am?"
Right.
Get the
They'd be looking at her like she's like, "Don't talk to me, talk to him. I don't want to have nothing to do with your shit. Leave me
Haas
alone."
was like, "I'm not here of my free will. She abducted me."
right.
So
Trying to get this gold
39%.
sausage.
Now,
Reverse.
here's another little bit of trivia. Those opposed to interracial marriage in America has dropped from 63% in 1989 to what percentage in 2017?
55%.
Say it again.
Those opposed to interracial marriage in America dropped from 63% in 1989 to X in 2017.
55%.
58%. Now it's fucking with you.
Nope. 14%. So again, this is
dropped all the way down to 14%.
This is people who are opposed to it, right? So
14% are opposed.
The 39% was people who think it's good. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are opposed to it. They just believe it may be good or bad. This one was, no, I don't think it should happen at all. So 14% of people 5 years ago. So we can guess that it's dropped a little bit since then. Maybe it's 13 right now.
I'm surprised, and I'm pleasantly surprised by that.
Yeah, so 13%.
I'm convinced they was lying.
1 out of every 10 people that you meet is opposed to interracial marriage,
especially if it's their daughter or son.
However, that percentage is significantly lower in opposition to white Asian marriages.
So they're more cool with that?
They're more cool with white Asian marriages.
Oh, of course. Proximity to whiteness.
Anything. It's almost a negligible percentage. Interestingly, and a lot of that comes from, GIs bringing home Vietnamese women and after the war in Vietnam. Interestingly, intermarried Hispanics. Now, these are some really interesting facts here. Intermarried Hispanics and blacks have a significant. I got to say this right because this is a weird statement. Intermarried Hispanics and blacks have a significantly higher rate of college education, again, when intermarried. So in other words, a random woman who is married to who is in an interracial marriage who is Hispanic has more college education than random woman who is Hispanic who is married to another Hispanic. If that makes any sense. That is also true.
That's an interesting statistic. I don't know if it make. I don't know how it. I don't know if that. I know what you mean by if that makes sense, but I was taking it in a deeper level.
Well, I think that you can look at some social stigmas there.
Are you trying to say that the highly educated women of that particular race are going for interracial marriages as opposed to marrying someone of their own?
No, what I think is that white men or women will be more willing to hire or to marry a person of another race if they are educated rather than if they are not.
I think it's simpler than that. I think that the further you go in education, the more diverse your surroundings are. The more diverse your surroundings are, the more likely you are to meet someone of a different background that you vibe with.
Haas, that's a good point. You know what I feel like saying here? Two things can be true at once.
Oh, I'm not saying that in certain cases. In certain cases, it's just they're educated.
No. You're. I think.
But I think that it's more of the pool. You know, because the less educated you are, the closer the radius is to your home that's you're around.
That's a really good point. I think now it is interesting to say with Black Americans, it's only a percentage or so different. With Hispanics though, it's 41% compared to 16, so really, really big difference. Now, here's something very interesting. Also, I know that
there's a big social stigma in the Black community and the Hispanic community around dating outside of your race.
What?
Yeah. Well, it is what it is. But so that pattern, again, the pattern we're talking about here is the propensity for someone in an interracial marriage to have a college education compared to not having a college education. It is higher for Hispanics, higher for blacks. And it doesn't necessarily say they have to be married to white people, but it just says intermarried in general.
Right.
That pattern is the opposite with intermarried Asians. Intermarried Asians are less likely to have a college education when they are in an interracial marriage.
That is interesting.
Mm-hmm. White men married to black women have much lower rates of divorce than white marriages. But black men married to white women have slightly higher than the average rates of divorce. Asian white marriages.
I was part of that.
Yeah, so both of you guys are done. Asian white marriages have the lowest rate of divorce of any other demographic mix. So no group gets divorced less than white Asian.
Now, when you break down white Asian,
again, this is according to this poll. So this.
Yeah, what I want to know is when you break down white Asian intermarriages, what percentages are white male to Asian female, and what percentage is Asian male and white female?
It doesn't say, but I would imagine that because of the fact that there is a woman shortage in China, that you would guess that it would be men with Asian men with white women more frequently. But
here in America.
Yeah, that's a good point, because that would only hold true but maybe they came here to find a wife.
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Because I would think that more. My and this is anecdotal, but in my experience, it's about a 75-25 ratio, where it's 75% white men and Asian women, and about 25% Asian men and white women. And there's that whole Asian women are subservient deal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's true or not, but that might lend to the lower rates of divorce.
No, but so you might be onto something here, and again, this is kind of unimportant, but
right.
but so after Vietnam, there was a lot of white GIs who married Vietnamese women. Like that number spiked like 700% or something like that right after Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
And the Korean War for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
So white women file for divorce more than any other demographic.
Don't try it, Kristen.
So so that would tell you that possibly it would almost have to be Asian women, white man. But I don't know. It's an interesting thought, experiment. But anyway, some more statistics here. These are all super, super interesting shit. Roughly half, 49% of Democrats and independents who lean to the Democratic Party, left-leaning independents, say the growing number of people of different races marrying each other is a good thing for society. So again, this goes back to that 39% we talked about before. So still only half of Democrats think interracial marriage is good for society.
Right.
That number with Republicans and right-leaning independents is 28%. And those two numbers make sense because you have slightly more Democrats than Republicans nationally. This is provable by the fact that Democrats have won all but one popular vote since 1992. So 28% of Republicans, the 28% and the 49% would equal about 39%. Of the 3.6 million adults who got married in 2013, 58% of Native Americans, 28% of Asian Americans.
Hold on, what's this? What's the saying again? There's so much numbers here, and I can't see it, so I'm getting lost.
No, that's not your fault because I probably wrote the sentence backwards. Of the 3.6 million adults who got married in 2013 and are in an interracial marriage, those demographics are as followed. So this is the percent of people who got married and also that marriage was an interracial marriage. Native Americans were the number one group at 58%. Asian Americans, 28%. African Americans intermarry 19%. And white Americans intermarry 7% of the time.
That almost lines up perfectly with the disparages in the amounts of the population, where the smallest population has the highest percent and then proceeding downward.
That's a very astute observation. Interestingly, Arab Americans or East Indian Americans, Pakistani, Sikh, Muslim, not included in this at all. So I kind of wonder about that.
That's strange.
But lastly, a benefit, though they could be included under the Asian. Maybe I'm thinking with my white mind here, because technically
that South Asian is Asian.
Well, I don't think that Pakistanis are considered Asian, but I know
they're South Asian.
But Arab Americans are. So okay, so
they're South Asian.
Okay, so then they're probably included in that 28%. So my white mind was dividing things that shouldn't be divided. Anyway, lastly, a benefit of interracial marriages is that it increases the opportunity for positive interracial encounters. Research has found a reduction in prejudice and discrimination towards members of an outgroup when one has positive interracial encounters. There is evidence that interracial marriage challenges the barriers of racial identity. Not only does interracial marriage oftentimes result in mixed race children who defy these barriers, but it also could cause those who engage in either challenge or recognize their own racial identities. According to studies and polling, this can mean different things for different races. For example, African Americans might be treated one way when they intermarry, and white people another way when they intermarry. And sometimes those are good and sometimes they're bad. So we won't get into the semantics of that. But this could mean that interracial marriage has a deep effect on racial construction in and of itself, because we know race is a social construct. Ending this off with same-sex marriage, because it is Gay Pride Month, so it's fair to mention this as well. Same-sex marriage, also known as gay marriage, is the marriage of, and there's some super interesting shit in this paragraph. Obviously, the marriage of two people of the same sex or gender, not counting Ezra Miller. There are records of marriages between men dating. There are records of marriages between two men dating back to the 1st century. So think about how long ago that is. Documented marriages between two men. This
Are you talking about Ian McClellan and Patrick Stewart?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. This includes Roman Emperor Nero, who had at least 3 husbands of various ethnicities. Gay marriage is legally performed and recognized in 30 countries. The most recent addition to that being Switzerland, which will start allowing gay marriage on July 1st, upcoming this year. The U.S. federally certified gay marriages as of 2015. Scientific studies show that the financial, psychological, and physical well-being of gay people are enhanced by marriage. Well, you don't say. And that the children of same-sex parents benefit from being raised by married same-sex couples within a marital union that is recognized by law and supported by social institutions, and show detriment when it is socially unacceptable. By the way, this also holds true for interracial marriage. Divorce rates among gay men is slightly lower than heterosexual rates of divorce, but rates of divorce for lesbian women is slightly higher. Again, possibly explained by the fact that women initiate over 70% of heterosexual divorces. So women just be like, I'm done with you. I'm out of here. And it don't matter if it's a man or a woman.
Those words were from Dutch. That is
Yes.
Dutch. So just put in the subject heading of your email, just put for Dutch, and that's at digonamerica@gmail.com. Yeah, care of Dutch.
Care of Dutch, right. So that's that. So it's a little bit longer, but I didn't want to do that without putting in some of those stats and stuff, because I just found a lot of that stuff. I find statistics fascinating.
You should have them on the screen next time.
Good to do because
I should, but that would require me to do more work. Okay.
Aren't you reading it off of screen?